What hobbies scream, I'm a rich person? Story number 1. In Sweden it's tennis, even though tennis isn't super expensive. That's where all the millionaires and their kids are. Story 2. I work for Porsche. Many clients have racetrack memberships where they garage their cars and have track days. 80,000 initiation fee and 10,000 annual fee for some memberships. Story 3. My neighbor is a yachtsman who makes a middle-class living, racing rich people's yachts, so I would say hiring people to indulge your hobbies is about as 1% as one can get. Not too different than merchant families being patrons for artists during the Renaissance or billionaires buying sports teams. They love the hobby, but they know they can't replicate the talent. Story 4. Polo. I worked at one of the largest polo clubs in America and had all sorts of celebs and former presidents go there. Made great money because how some of these people tip is insane. Not usually the celebs, but the moderately rich people always have a 20. During the after-party of one tournament I went to, there was a race between one of the fastest horses, a Bugatti, and a helicopter. I heard a polo player once complained that not many young people played the sport. He said, "You only need 5 horses. Your parents can buy them." Haven't heard someone that out of touch with reality often. Story 5. A friend of ours got a wildly expensive cappuccino machine from his wife for Christmas. She didn't think there was room for it in their huge gourmet kitchen, so they had a whole coffee station with cabinets and drawers and a built-in mini fridge and marble countertops installed in the adjoining breakfast area. This was all because they got tired of driving to Starbucks twice a day. And they sent us home with an Xbox One the other night because they just bought whatever the new one is and had no use for it. Story 6. I had a rich boyfriend who didn't realize it wasn't normal to throw away stuff you pre-ordered just because it didn't live up to expectations. He had a 4-day-old Xbox when he was going to throw away because he wanted the PS for more. Guess who got a free Xbox One? Story 7. I had a friend who threw away her spare change, 2 or 3 quid at a time, and it bowled my piss. She could have saved it or donated it, but she couldn't be bothered, so in the bin it went. Story 8. When I worked in a campus cafe during college, a guy literally threw his change away in front of me and said to the girl he was with, who was looking at him in disbelief, "What? I don't carry change, I'm not poor." Everyone stopped and there was a silence. And then I was just like, "Jesus Christ, dude," and he left, wound up going to grad school with him. He absolutely remembered the incident, and the look on his face when I walked in was priceless. Story 9. I worked at a gas station and people would throw away or leave their change all the time. The thing is, they were poor. This was 2009 in a working-class neighborhood, so like half my customers were unemployed. They just didn't want to seem poor. Story 10. We had a meet and greet with a new executive at my company, and she told us one of her hobbies is investing in real estate. The frustrating thing about having money makes money is that if you have the money to do this, it's a great financial decision. For a small-scale example, I dated a woman in college who had a rather wealthy mother. Instead of renting a place to live for her daughter, she just bought an apartment close to campus and then sold it when my ex graduated. Because the rent she charged my ex's roommate covered both upkeep and the mortgage, she not only broke even but probably turned a profit, while the rest of us were in the negative for paying rent even though we didn't have as much money. Story 11. Same situation when I was in college. A friend with wealthy parents bought a house for him to live in while he was going to college, and the additional rooms were rented out to some of his friends. Even at a discounted rent, they more than covered the mortgage, insurance, and upkeep, and then turned a profit. That's why it's so difficult for people born into wealth to grasp how truly difficult it is to make money when you're poor. They think if I can easily make money, then everyone can. Poor people are just lazy or bad at managing their finances, because it's easier to believe that than admit that. You had a massive advantage in life from the get-go. Story 12. I had a rich homie whose parents are both doctors. His entire college and dorm was paid for in full out of pocket. A different buddy and I were making a whole plan about how we could start at the local community college for the associate's degree, then get loans after the associate's degree. And rich homie chimed in, "Why would you get a loan? Why don't you guys just pay for it up front? It's not that much," says the kid who didn't put a single penny into his college. Shout out, community college is a beautiful thing. They have so many programs, grants, scholarships to alleviate costs. On top of being super affordable, it's either dirt cheap or free. Story 13. Bartender here to very cute girls from out of town sat at my bar. Equally cute guy walks in, immediately buys them drinks. His opener was, "So how often do you gals boat?" They were from fucking Philly lol. When he said that I couldn't not smirk at it, he also tipped me like $130 for 3 beers. Yeah, boating is expensive as frick. Wouldn't call it a rich hobby down here in Florida though. You'll see plenty of dilapidated houses with a nice fishing boat out front. Story 14. Friend of a friend is stupid rich, emphasis on stupid. Guy famously decided to learn to fly one day, so he bought a new plane, and not a cheap one. Apparently he got it into his head that the plane would be better with a new wiring system. So he had it rewired to the tune of an extra 60 grand. Then he started the process to get his pilot's license, and found out that he's color blind, I think it was. So he just gave up the idea and sold the plane at a huge loss, didn't blink an eye. Story 15. Not really a hobby, but I worked for a boutique private doctor company that catered to the very rich, membership fee for okay year per person, not including their insurance, and these are just some of the things that are included. You have a medical team, your primary, a nurse, cardiologist, obgyn, physical therapist, nutritionist, etc. just for you. Need an appointment for anything. They will work around your schedule, yearly checkup. 2 hours with your primary doctor and your medical team at the clinic or your house. They craft a yearly wellness plan for you and track it monthly. Lab work in-house at the clinic or at your house. The nurse will call you within 24 hours with the results and explain them to you in great detail. You have your DRS mobile hash and email address, and you can reach out to them 24/7 with questions or concerns. Are you traveling domestically or internationally? They will provide you with top-tier DRS wherever you are, or have your personal doctor and nurse fly out. Are you having a medical emergency? Your doctor and nurse will meet you at the ER and have a private room ready for you with a specialist, if needed. Don't feel like going to the DRS office. They will go wherever you are. Insurance or billing questions, you don't worry. They will navigate that for you. Story 16. It's so funny to me that F1 is such an indicator of wealth and gentleman's sport. Because being into motorsports in the USA means you're blue collar. I started watching F1 and picked Verstappen partially because he's from Red Bull, Honda. I can afford a Red Bull and a Honda. Yeah, owning an F1 team is how you know you've made it. Own a baseball team, yeah, you're high society. Own a football team, multi-billionaire. Own an F1 team, multi-generational wealth where every one of your children will be billionaires. Story 17. High-end auctions at places like Sotheby's and Christie's. Nothing says access wealth like paying 6 figures for an antique salt shaker. To add to your already inexplicably large collection of antique salt shakers. Story 18. I went to my Annie's 70th birthday. She's a hobbyist pilot and longtime member of an aviation club. My partner and I were talking to one of the guys there, and he asked, "Did you guys ever get into flying?" To which we obviously replied with no. He seemed genuinely surprised and then asked, "Oh, did your parents just not let you?" The obscene cost of flying, renting planes never even entered his mind. The only reason he could see for not flying planes as a child was a lack of interest. Story 18. Traveling. I know you can travel on the cheap, but even doing it cheaply multiple times a year is a luxury of the rich for the most part. Not only the cost of the trip, but having the financial freedom to not work so you can travel. Story 19. Creating a secret cave filled with high-tech equipment. How does he keep his identity secret? Surely there are contractors that worked on the Batcave. And what about the guy who installed the red phone? And why are there so many minor celebrities sticking their heads out of windows in Gotham? Whole thing sound pretty far-fetched if you ask me, lol. Story 20. I used to work catering at thoroughbred horse auctions. I live in KY, so these people are completely bonkers for horses. Saw a few go for over 12 mil. I actually saw a woman walk up to one while they were grooming it, drop to her knees, and weep at its beauty. Horse people are the absolute weirdest. They live and breathe these animals. And it's completely insane, unrelated, but funny. That woman got kicked pulling that same move a week later. She's fine. But there were about 1 million signs the next day saying basically these are massive animals. And if you want to mess around and find out it's not on us, that one cracked me up. Story 21. Something that probably isn't the first to people's minds, but aquariums. Good God, are aquariums all about upfront investments in time, money, and space, and that still doesn't 100% safeguard things from going catastrophic, to which then the typical solution is an even more absurd dedication of time, money, and space to remedy said problem. They're gorgeous, and can absolutely be a source of serenity for a room. But honestly, that serenity is only going to be felt by those who didn't have to put the work, planning, and money into it. I'd honestly say keeping a standard 20-gallon fish tank would be comparable to keeping a small parrot, at least in terms of effort and knowledge required, and the needs go up exponentially from there. Story 22. Art collecting. If your goal is to hoard as much money as possible and get the most famous Picasso for a gazillion dollars, yeah. I don't have a lot of money. I love art. And I consider myself an art collector, even if it's from thrift shops. If it's not a famous name, you can get beautiful signed prints and lithographies for like $30. Or buy directly from an artist you find online and like. Story 23. As someone who loves kayaking, I will say that it can be considered expensive only because of transporting the kayak. If you don't live immediately beside a body of water, you 100% need a personal vehicle with a roof rack to be able to transport your kayak to water bodies to launch it. Without a car, a kayak is almost useless. But if you have a personal vehicle at your disposal, then honestly kayaking isn't that expensive, and I would highly recommend. Story 24. I recently went to Lunamtn in New Hampshire, which is pretty average skiing, and for a family of 4. Our tickets cost $475 a day. That's almost $1,000 just in ticket cost for the weekend. On top of that, we spent a couple hundred on food. Luckily, we were staying with someone. Otherwise, we would have to pay another almost $1,000 for lodging. We're upper middle class, and we could barely afford it. I don't understand how the mountain and lift lines were so crowded. Who can afford this more than once a year, if that? Story 25. There's ski rich and ski poor. I bought the cheapest season pass option, bought old discounted gear, and mostly day trip from the nearby metro area where I live in a studio apartment. Total cost for the year including pass $350, gear, snowboard, boots, bindings $550, and estimated travel cost the rest because I'm taking a road trip this year is about $1,500. I have to tighten my belt to accommodate the lifestyle, but I and many other working class folks rip year after year. Some of the lift conversations I've had, however, have been with folks who take 2 to 3 week-long plus destination trips each year. A few people even bounce between the hemispheres to chase snow. Now that requires money. I know people who do that, but they work at the ski resorts. Every one of us lifties were broke kids who would laugh at rich Jerry's going up trying to impress someone when they could barely get down a blue light. Story 26. Collecting Golden Age or Silver Age comics. When I started collecting myself in the mid to late 80s, there were only a handful of expensive books, mostly DC titles. A stickler for condition. Would only buy it if it was near mint NM or better condition. At one point my collection consisted of Daredevil #1. Spider-Man #129, First Punisher appearance, X-Men #1, plus giant-sized number 1, issues 94 to about 230 ISH. With my last major purchase being fantastic for number 1, which at the time was valued at approx $1,200 in 1990 to paid like $1,100, since this would easily have been a 9.0 or better graded book. The value today would be over $250,000, plus quite a few other books that at the time were only worth between $75–$500. Many are worth tens of thousands or more now. Wound up selling my collection mid-90s, and although I made a profit, there is nitrogen monoxide way I could afford to be collecting on that level anymore. Had I waited and sold my copies today, I could afford to retire by selling under 100 of my books that were worth the most today. My collection, when sold, consisted of nearly 8,000 books. Story 27. GT Racing, Rally Racing. Building a race car is expensive. The consumables are expensive, e.g. a set of tires costs thousands and lasts a few laps. Rally racing has a high likelihood of crashes which require on-the-spot repairs. Related, people talking about racing on this thread should check out the 24 Hours of Lemons. Your car can only cost $500 or less, and I think you add on safety gear that's $1,000 or so, and it's supposed to be one of the goofiest races that take place. Story 28. If this is technically the answer you were looking for, but just about an hour ago, I saw an ad for a farmer's market in a part of town that is basically just a rich people's shopping district, and it's Thursday at 8 to 11 a.m. Nothing screams this is only for people with money than being scheduled for the time when most people work, and the fact that it had tons of white ladies commenting ready to go after brunch solidified that. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you want to support us, please subscribe and check out our other videos.